you saw it on Saturday, which was the most formal practice of camp thus far. Bo's pocket presence is much better than it was even last week. And now that we've seen pads for like 5-6 days, Mike, bullets are flying. I love the fact that he can feel pressure. He recognizes it at the line of scrimmage. These are signs to me that this guy is going to start to look the part. It doesn't mean that he's a world beater, but what it means is he's getting more comfortable organically, which Sean told us to start training camp. That's what he wanted out of this competition. He believed that separation will organically begin to occur, and I think, yes, the experience from Bo, obviously we talk about it ad nauseum, the 61 college starts being an FBS record, that's a big part of it. But Kenny Pickett had 49 starts, Desmond Ridder had 45 starts. Those guys couldn't play. Talent eventually rises to the top, and I think what we're seeing is the skill set, the tools that Bo has. I think you could make the argument that he's operating from a better foundation, quite frankly, than anybody they've had in here since they went to the Super Bowl.
So James's point is that Sean's been able to blame everything on first Nathaniel Hackett and then Russell Wilson.
James believes that?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I'm going to read.
Or James Marillac.
Yes. It's like he believes that there's going to be no day of reckoning for Sean, and that he thinks that Broncos country,
yeah, I see what you're saying,
or us folks here, that we're just going to continue to give Sean Payton this indefinite pass, or that Deion Sanders is going to be given an indefinite pass. No.
Not even close. Not even close.
I like the Sean Payton hire, and I do believe in Sean Payton.
Well, you stand with Sean.
I stand with Sean. But to think that loyalty is doesn't have an expiration date is silly. Okay, yeah. Sorry, James, if I didn't, take 9 years of bad football and bad decision making and just really head scratching decisions that all landed in Sean Payton's lap in year one, and say, what? You couldn't fix it in year one? What's the matter with you? I'm not going to do that. No. I'm not going to do that because it's not fair. It's not right. And I also watched Russell Wilson play quarterback for 2 years. He sucks. Okay? I mean, let's just be real. Russell Wilson can't play anymore. Okay? You can't win with him. Seattle deserves medals for the way that they were able to win around Russ, not win because of Russ. They were able to build a structure around Russ that was successful. But when given the chance to actually go out and be the guy here for the last 2 years, he failed miserably. And he's not going to be the answer in Pittsburgh. Heck, he may not even start week one in Pittsburgh. He may lose this job to Justin Fields, and then who knows what Russell Wilson's future holds. But this notion that Sean Payton is going to be able to go through the rest of this year and the years coming up with no accountability is silly. I stand with Sean, but I've got expectations for how this season should go. Absolutely. And if they're not met, then I'll come down on Sean, just like I'll come down on Deion.
Couple things. We just had the conversation not more than a half an hour ago about how they won 8 games last year. I just don't see, is what you told me, I just don't see how they lost enough guys that it's going to matter, or anybody consequential enough to make that big of a difference, right? You said that. Am I correct?
Yeah.
That's your take?
Yeah.
Well, if Russ sucked and you think that the 8 wins was an accomplishment, then you must think Sean is really damn good.
Yeah, I think Sean did a masterful job with Russell Wilson. I think for all the Rusties out there who are critical of Sean, actually should be giving Sean a ton of thanks, because despite the fact that this was the 27th ranked offense in the NFL, 32 teams, despite the fact that they averaged 21 points a game, which brings us back to the halcyon days of Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock and Trevor Siemian and all these other quarterbacks that we watched struggle to score somewhere between 18 and 21 points per game. That's what Russ did last year for the majority of that season, 21 points per game. But nobody pays attention to that. When you make the case for Russ, or when you make the case against this year's Broncos team, it tends to come back to, hey, Russ last year was pretty good. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I don't care about that. What I care about, nobody talks about the fact that it was the 27th ranked offense. Nobody talks about that they only averaged 21 points per game. They want to just dwell on the 26 touchdowns and 8 picks. That's why Sean should be given thanks by the Rusties for putting Russ in a position where his numbers actually look pretty good, despite the fact that the overall team offensive numbers were dog crap.
So I would agree with that in principle, right? But again, Sean's not the one with 16 takeaways in 5 games. Sean's not coaching them for 9 to 2 turnover ratio, beating the Chiefs and the Bills. Okay, so like I get you. I think you're giving Sean too much credit and not giving Russ enough. Look, I'm not a Russ guy. Russ was miserable in the pocket. He was miserable. You're not getting an argument out of me. Should they have gotten rid of him? Absolutely. Do I think he can still play? He can play to the point where a middling NFL quarterback can. I would just say the distinction is, it's not that he can't play, it's that you can't win with him. And if you want to have any sort of chance, you have to completely cater to what he does. And that is not going to be the case here. The Broncos put their eggs in Sean's basket. They gave Sean the keys. If it's not going to work for Sean, then see ya, Russ. If Sean says that he can't win with you, then goodbye. But now it's Sean's guy, and the clock has started.
Yeah.
However, even in year one, to try and really put, if you're going to hold playoffs over this version of the Broncos team's head, I'm really not going to listen to you, because Rome isn't built in a day. If you're pointing at the Texans last year and going, well, Houston did it, name me the next team. Okay, Jacksonville in the second to third year under Trevor Lawrence. Keep going. You can't come up with many examples.
Justin Herbert had a good rookie season.
But it wasn't like a crazy turnaround where we're talking about, like, you know, you're picking tops in the drafts,
right.
1 or 2,
right.
and then you're making a, you know, second round of the playoffs the next year. That just doesn't happen very much.
Yeah.
So, first of all, James says this time it's Russ. You know, that was one of his quotes there in the article where he writes about Sean indirectly taking a shot at Russell because he says that sacks are a quarterback stat. Well, guess what? I watched the film, same as you.
Yeah.
Last year, sacks were a quarterback stat.
Absolutely.
The majority of them were on Russell Wilson, whether or not you want to believe that. I mean, we'll sit there with Stink, and he will show us coach's film and go through frame by frame of exactly what this guy is doing wrong. So if you don't want to believe a quote-unquote talking head, believe Mark Schlereth, the 3-time Super Bowl champion, who, when watching film, would become visibly ill watching Russell Wilson. So no, I don't think it's ever not been about Russ for Sean, but I get where James coming from. He's talking about last year's comments in reference to Hackett. It's always somebody else. Well, the fact of the matter is they did win 8 games, and even though I don't think that those 8 games are maybe as impressive as they look on paper, because 2 of them were over Easton Stick, and that 5-game win streak, you had unprecedented turnover luck, 16 in 5 games. One has no correlation to the other. James should be thrilled that Bo Nix is starting to show traits that he's got good pocket presence, which he's starting to show that trait, that he's becoming more comfortable in the offense. Because if you're a Broncos fan, if you're actually a Broncos fan, you are rooting just as hard for Sean as you are for Bo. And if you were rooting for Russ, you should be rooting just as hard for Bo. Like, if you're harboring that, this is the future. We're moving forward. Russ talked about 4 or 5 more Super Bowls. I don't care who they put in here. I don't care if they put the 49ers in here. He's not winning 1 Super Bowl.
You know, you look at some of the top quarterbacks last year in the NFL, and you look at their sack numbers, okay? Tua had 29, Goff 30, Josh Allen 24, Brock Purdy 28, Mahomes 27. All right, so we're all looking in that mid to upper 20s, around 30, okay? Those are the top quarterbacks in the league when it came to sacks. Russell Wilson, over the last, I don't know, six years, okay? These are his sack numbers, starting 6 years ago. 51, 48, 47, 33 in a 14-game season, and then the 2 years here in Denver, 55 and 45. When the best quarterbacks in the league are getting sacked 15 to 20 times less than Russell Wilson is, are you telling me that poor Russ just, oh gosh darn it, whether it was Seattle or here in Denver, just had the misfortune of playing behind a lousy offensive line? Poor Russ.
No.
Of course not.
Russ created so much of
not.
that pressure himself, which is why my biggest takeaway from last week, and I think it's really important, is that Bo is starting to look the part. The pocket presence is improved. He is feeling the pressure. Russ couldn't feel the pressure. When Russ felt the pressure, his eyes went down and he immediately tried to escape. Even when maybe there's pressure coming from the backside, but he was going to be free and clear if you step up. Russ swiveled around and turned into the sack on the backside. There were so many fundamental mistakes. And I think from an execution standpoint, Sean Payton's offense is all about efficiency, and Russell Wilson is not an efficient player. And Bo Nix projects to be a guy like that. So if you want it to work with Sean, this is the type of guy you want. And again, I respect the fact that Sean got the best, in my opinion, that you're going to get left out of Russ last year, because he was significantly improved over that year with Hackett. That to me is the past at this stage.
So for the texter on the RommelSide.com text